Hey there, good afternoon. This is Jay Frost, of course, speaking to you as always from the Philanthropy Mastermind series brought to you by our friends at DonorSearch. And if you're wondering why we're not talking about DonorSearch today, it's because they're kind enough to provide a platform where we have people like our guest today. And we are so happy to have Ken Miller, who I'll be introducing in a moment to you. But if you want to learn more about DonorSearch, or for that matter, see any of the other 500 plus programs in the series, all you have to do is go over to donorsearch.net under the resources tab, and you'll find them there, along with their YouTube channel and other places. And I'll tell you all about that again later. But I want to jump right in to the content today. And that's an opportunity to hear directly from our guest, Ken Miller, who's, if you're not familiar with his work, I'll give the briefest of introductions because I know he'll give you a lot more when we jump into the subject of coaching, mentoring, and workplace sponsorship. So we are so grateful that he's willing to take time to talk about the subject. I don't know about you, but I've never really had a mentor. That's a huge admission. Probably explains why I know some things and there's most things I don't know. And so he'll have an opportunity to both define all those categories, introduce those concepts to us if they're new to you, as sometimes they have been to me, but also, if you're a little more experienced, you'll find that this is the right place to be for this discussion, whether you're the future mentor or somebody looking for one all the way through, again, sponsorship. Now, Ken's work, if you're not familiar with it, first of all, he's CFRE. He is a master trainer with AFP. He's on the board of AFP, in fact, coming into town for their board meeting. He is also, of course, the head of his own firm, which is Denali, FSP, Fundraising and Grant Consultants, which is out of Alaska and has worked in the field for quite a long time. He also has been serving not only on the AFP board, but also as a board member, I believe currently of AABO, again, the African American Development Officers Association, and as an advisory board member for the Men of Color in Development organization. And that's just one of, I think, 12 affiliations like this that he has, but ones that are very important to our field right now. And I'm sure that some of the things that he is leading people in that area will be evident in this discussion of mentorship as well. So with that, Ken, thank you very much for hanging out with us today and for educating us a little bit on this subject.
Well, thank you, Jay. And first, I always want to give a thank you. I want to give a thank you to you personally for allowing me the opportunity to share, because that's what I'm going to do is share. And I'm going to take information that's of experience and information that's academic in the areas of coaching, workplace sponsorship, and mentorship. And also, I want to thank DonorSearch for having this platform available to give individuals opportunity to do some continuing education, because I'm a big believer in lifelong learning. So with that, if we're ready to get started, I'm ready to get started. Sound good?
Take it away.
All right. So I'm going to share my screen here, and we will go screen one, share, and we're going to begin, and we'll talk about this is DonorSearch Philanthropy Mastermind series, and we're going to talk about mentorship, coaching, and workplace sponsorship. And first thing I always like to do is make an introduction, and you did a great introduction, Jay, and I'm very appreciative of that. But I really want to allow people to understand is who I am and my why. And I always like to let people know how many slides we have. We have about 35 slides. And if you have any questions, let's save them to the end. I can put them in the chat, or you can send me an email and I will answer them. It doesn't cost you anything. I will do it absolutely for free, because it is my honor and my privilege to be able to share. But the important thing I always want to let people understand is my why. Why do I do this? I do this at no cost. I do this free. I do this to share information for our sector and for one of my favorite group of people, which are development professionals and also individuals, obviously, in an advancement also. But my why is real simple. And it really comes back to a lot of what we're going to be talking about, which is the mentorship and the coaching and the workplace sponsorship. I have been a recipient of all of them. And in one way or other, I have also now given that back to individuals within our sector and outside of our sector in all three areas. But my why is real simple. I grew up in Anchorage, Alaska, since I was 12 years old. I went off to Dartmouth College, came back with my degree in 1984. But real simply is I came back also with a problem with substances. I had substance abuse and misuse. And so I ended up doing 17 years on the streets. I was a street alcoholic and addict. And by some of the things that I did or was a part of, I ended up doing 3 terms in the penitentiary. And when I got out, finally, after I got cleaned up in 2004, I got out of prison the last time in 2007, and I had no skill sets. And individuals allowed me to take lead from them and to take information from them and mentored me. And we will talk about implicit and explicit mentoring and or coaching, but especially in the mentoring. And I had some explicit coaches. I had, mentors. I have 3 of them. One has passed away, a good friend of mine, Bernie Washington, but I still have 2 mentors that I being mentored by. And then in return, at this time, I'm mentoring approximately 18 men across the country in different areas. Most of them are in advancement or development, but there are a few who are not. And we'll talk about the workplace sponsorship, and we'll talk about the coaching. But again, the reason I bring up the past is to talk to you about my why. That's my why. I want individuals to maybe hear something, to be motivated, to be able to get the technical knowledge, to get the information that will make them a better whoever they are and whatever their dreams and aspirations are. So let's get into coaching, sponsoring, and mentoring. Okay. First thing I want you to think, and this is a question for you to think to yourself and to ask yourself, am I being mentored? Am I truly being mentored? Because again, we're going to talk about implicit mentoring and explicit mentoring. Am I being coached? Usually you will know if you're being coached because you're paying for it. Coaching is usually there's remuneration between the 2 parties, the coachee and the coach. But we'll talk to that a bit. And then also, am I being sponsored? Do I know what workplace sponsorship is? And am I being sponsored? So I want you to ask yourself that question. And then in return, are you mentoring? Are you coaching? Are you sponsoring? When I do these presentations in person, I usually have individuals raise their hand. And I guess it gives me a little sense of the room. But I just want you to take some time and answer those questions for yourself. Okay? So let's start with coaching. We're going to go into coaching first, then we'll do workplace sponsorship, and then we'll go into the mentorship, and then we'll wrap it up. Let's talk about the definition of coaching, because it's important, and I'm really big on definitions, to understand what do we mean by coaching. Anyway, according to the International Coach Federation, which is a great site to go to if you ever have the opportunity, coaching is defined as a partnership with clients and a thought-provoking and creative process that inspires them to maximize their personal and professional potential. And this is important. Coaching is client-driven process that is distinct from other service professions, such as counseling, mentoring, consulting, and training. Underneath that, you will see the attribution, which is to the Association for Talent Development. If you are ever interested, or if you are interested in anything to do with the coaching, go to that site. They're great. They have a tremendous amount of information, the Association for Talent Development. Okay. There are approximately 5 different types of coaching, at least that I will speak to. There's a couple other ones that I don't talk to much in our sector, but let's talk about the different types of coaching. You have career coaching, provides support for employees looking to make a career transition, whether short or long term, including guidance on their professional development and job search. Very common, especially when organizations are doing where they're cutting back or they're making their teams smaller, and they will a lot of times provide that as a service to you to do as you're doing your career transition. Or let's say you leave your firm that you're working for, your organization, your nonprofit, and you want to potentially look at a career transition into a different sector or a different area within, and you would get a career coach to talk to you about your career. Next one, life coaching. Not the most popular type of coaching within an organization. Life coaches are sometimes present internally. This specialty of coaching focuses on a variety of aspects of life, including career, health and fitness, finances, relationships, and spiritual growth. It's interesting. My wife used to work for a company called British Petroleum, BP, Alaska, and they offered this life coaching for individuals that work within. They were large enough to do that. Rarely do we see it in the nonprofit world because, again, the organization is paying for that. Now, on your own, you can, of course, look for, and I'll show you how to look for a life coach or any of these coaches, but it's usually done in some of the larger organizations that they will offer this. Organizational business coaching provides business owners and entrepreneurs with support in identifying goals, creating strategies to obtain those goals, and boosting the overall performance of the organization. So I've done this. I do this where I will come in as a business coach and I'll work with the executive director, the CEO, the president to strategize how that they can be more effective and therefore the organization can be more effective by working with them at the CEO level or executive level, presidential level. So that's one that I do, and that's somewhat common in organizations. You will see that. Usually it's indicated by the board of directors. They will indicate to the executive director, we'd love for you to get some coaching. And they're predominantly talking about business coaching or organizational coaching. Performance coaching supports those within organizations who need to improve their work performance, often as a result of performance appraisal results, regardless of level or job title. So you can say a performance coaching is business coaching for an executive director, but many times you'll have a performance appraisal. Usually it's done annually. Sometimes you might do it biannually, but you'll get this appraisal and they'll indicate areas of improvement. And many times a good organization, a good nonprofit will allow and pay for an individual to get performance coaching. Hey, we'd love for you to get some coaching on your presentation skills. We'd love to get some coaching on working with major donors. And we'll get with Veritas or whoever it may be, or one of the other companies that are out there and say, we'll get you some performance coaching because we've identified an area of improvement and therefore we are going to give you some performance coaching. And then we have leadership coaching. Provides coaching for those looking to grow and develop leadership skills, regardless of whether they're an individual contributor manager or senior manager. Again, what organizations will do is that they will identify individuals that they believe have potential for leadership. And then they will provide, and again, this is with pay, or they will pay the coach to give them leadership coaching. And I believe, again, another powerful thing that the organization, now remember we've said this, there's two individuals or two different components of who is going to pay for the coaching. It's either the individual or it's going to be the organization. Most coaching is done by organizations, but it does not mean that you cannot as an individual provide your own coaching or get coaching. And you'll see that a lot with especially performance coaching. I know that I'm weak in a certain area, so I'm going to pay. I have a coach right now. And the coach that I have paid quite a nice amount is my coach for doing a lot of presentation from the stage. I'm doing keynote addresses and things from the stage. And I want to be very good at it. Even though I'm 61 years old, I still want to be the best I can. So I have a coach, a performance coach, to work with me on my presentation skills in person for larger presentations that I'm doing in workshops. Okay, so that's an example. Okay? Important to understand what coaching is not. Mentoring is self-directed, mutually beneficial, long-term relationship between two individuals for long-term career movement, where the mentor does most of the talking and offers advice. Okay? Coaching is a true partnership among equals. Mentoring most typically consists of a more experienced person directly guiding the mentee through an experience that the mentor has already been through. And we'll talk a lot about mentoring. But one of the things is a mentor by nature, best practice, we never charge. I've mentored 30, 40 men, and I've never charged and never will, because that's the long-term mutual relationship that I have. And we'll talk about when we get to the mentoring, but I've been mentoring some of the gentlemen that I've been mentoring for over 12 years. And we meet regularly because we have an explicit relationship and quote unquote almost contract that we will meet regularly, and these are the things that we will do, and this is what your part and this is what my part is. But again, that is mentoring. Coaching is client driven, and whereas coaching is a conversation focused on helping other people, coaches or clients, move forward relative to their goals. So you come into a performance coaching atmosphere and you say, what I want to do is I want to learn how to work with major donors. Okay, and you can get a coach that will just coach you on working with major donors, because that is an area that's been indicated that you might want to look to improve. Okay, and the thing is, you have a goal. The goal is to be a good major gift officer, NGO. And so to do that, I will get a coach to assist me on that. And it could be many. It could be public speaking. It could be how to write well. If you're doing a lot of writing within your team or your shop. Anyway, to move forward relative to their goals, hopes, and curiosity, not to dig into the past. In mentoring, a lot of times I dig into the past. I will ask questions. I do a lot of Socratic and I do a lot of questions to understand where are you at. But we'll talk a little bit more about that in the mentoring aspect. For coaching to be helpful, it should be directly tied to what the client wants to accomplish through a process that is directed by the coachee, where the coachee is empowered to uncover and develop their own path to achieving their goal and does the majority of the talking. That is a coaching relationship. When I coach executive directors, presidents, and CEOs, and they're mainly executive directors, what I am doing is I'm trying to allow them to come up with the answer to the problem that's indicated within their organization. And I can prod, I can share information, and a lot of times I know what the answer is, but I want them to come up with it because I want them to uncover what is the solution with my assistance. Now I can send them to certain books, I can send them to certain webinars, to certain workshops, to certain websites, but in the end, I want them to acquire the knowledge that they can then answer the question of what their solution is. It's much more powerful than me just saying, hey, you need to do this with your P&L, when you're doing your financials, because you're having a problem with more expense than you have income. But I can talk to them about P&Ls, I can talk to them about their financials, I can talk to them about working with their team members, I can talk to them about working with upper management or their team leaders. I can do all of that because I've done all of that. But my main thing is to help them uncover their truth or to uncover the answers and support them as they do that. Okay? So we have the career coaching, we have life coaching, we have business coaching, we have performance coaching, we have leadership coaching. Usually when I do this in person, you would turn to the person next to you. But I want you to just go inside and ask yourself and just think to yourself, if I was to do any type of coaching, what type of coaching would I want to do? Do I want a life coach? And my thing is, if you really want a life coach, you almost can get most of that from a mentor. Do I want a career coach? Am I looking to change sectors? Am I looking to go into a different type of nonprofit environment? Am I looking to go into a different part of, I'm doing annual gifts. I want to go into major gift work. Do I need a career coach to identify if that's the direction I want to go? Do I want to go into leadership? Do I want to become a part of management? What do I want to do? And I can use a career. And then we talked about the business coaching. That's more for the CEOs, executive directors, and presidents. But do I want to, do that? Because hopefully there's individuals on this call or on this webinar workshop who are executive directors in leadership. And business coaching is powerful. And then do I need performance coaching? My belief, everybody needs performance coaching. There's always areas that you are weak in. Then the question is who is the one who is going to pay for the coach? Is it going to be my organization? And if you come with a case for support, you could go to a case for support with your executive director or your team leader and say, hey, I really would like to get some performance coaching in this area because I believe that there would be a value added to the organization and that I will bring in more funds if I had some assistance and or performance coaching in this area, okay? And then leadership coaching. I used to think everybody needs to be a leader, and I've sort of changed that as I've gotten older. If you really want to be a leader, get some leadership coaching. If you don't want to be a leader, fine. You know, and I respect that. Some people don't want to be a leader, and I respect that. But if you do want, think about getting some leadership coaching. And it can be done, usually it's done by the individuals coaching, but there's also the leadership groups. I graduated from 2 leadership groups, Leadership Anchorage and Triple Impact Leadership. And those were groups of individuals, 8 to 12 people, that we learned quite a bit about leadership. All right, so take some time to think about that. So let's go into how to find a coach. And one of the most important things I like to do is when I present is to give you answers. It's one thing to say, this is coaching, this is mentorship, but how do we find these people? How do we go about it? This is how. First place I would go is Association for Talent Development, ATF. And then I would go to, it's really ATD. And then I would go to International Coach Federation. Then you can look at NUMI, which is a professional coach directory, NUMI.com, and it will have that. And then a lot of times, if you have a mentor, I would ask the mentor, hey, do you know a coach I could get for performance coaching? Because many times the mentor is not in your field or doesn't know, can't really do performance coaching for the skill set that you're looking for. And then the other one is real simple. You just Google your city, whatever city you're in, for leadership, executive, or business coach. And believe me, they will pop up. They will pop up. And I'm probably in Anchorage, in Northern and Western Washington. If you was to Google me in those areas. Okay, that's how you find a coach. Now, how do we work with a coach? Important. Number one thing you want to do when you work with a coach is define your goals. What is the desired result? What are you trying to achieve? Okay. My goal is to become a much better major gift officer. My goal is to be able to write better when I'm doing grants. My goal is to ... But you always go with the goal in mind. Number 2, define boundaries. I'm a pretty big one on this. You define the boundaries, and the boundaries, what I'm talking about is what are the boundaries in this relationship? And what I mean by that, a coach, especially if you're doing performance coaching, it's about the performance and the coaching. It's not about your life. Unless you're doing a life coach, it's not about your life. So I'm not going to talk about my family. I'm not going to talk about what I do on my off work hours. All I want to do is talk about major gift work. All I want to do is talk about being able to read financials better, because I just don't understand how to read financials. So you establish the boundaries. This is because, again, you're defining this. Define my goal, and I've defined my boundaries. Number 3, define communication. How often are we going to communicate? How are we going to communicate? Are we going to be in person? Are we going to be Zoom? Are we going to be telephone? How are we going to communicate? And also, and it's also, you'll see it on a defined timeline, how often are we going to communicate for these funds that I'm paying you for your coaching? And then we establish a contract. So let's talk about explicit and implicit contracts. An explicit contract is a contract that is explicitly agreed upon by the 2 parties. Whereas an implicit contract is something that's implied. So, and this is what gets a lot of individuals in trouble, is that they have an implied contract. What that means is, oh, I thought you were going to meet me every Friday, because I assumed that was implied because I've given you this amount of money to work with me over 2 or 3 months. So I had this implied. But we want to have an explicit. You can have an oral explicit contract, but I usually like to have it in writing. And any good coach, I would be very cautious if a coach comes to you and does not give you a written contract, because it also protects them. So you'll find this also when we go into the mentoring. It's important that we have explicit and implicit. All of my mentees have an explicit contract with me. It's oral, but they know, because we discuss it in the first meeting, what is their role, what is my role, what I'm going to provide, what they are in return to provide for me. And I have very small rules, but we explicitly talk about them. We talk about timeline, we talk about boundaries, we talk about communication, and we don't talk as much about goals, but when we get to the mentoring, we'll talk about it. We talk about dreams. That's what I do when I mentor, is I engender dreams. But we'll get to that when we get to the mentorship. And then we define the timeline. How long is this contract? How long are we going to work together? We're going to meet weekly for 3 months. We're going to meet bi-weekly for 6 months. We're going to meet annual. We're going to meet for a year. My contract with my speaking coach is for 1 year, and we meet monthly. So that's our agreement. That's what our contract is. And if you have any questions, please send them to me by email. We'll put them in the chat, and we'll get them answered. Okay. Okay. So we're done with coaching, and now we're going to talk about workplace sponsorship, and that's the true term. It's workplace sponsorship, and a lot of people don't understand this or not very familiar with it, but it happens all the time, and is a great thing to have on your side if you can get it. We're going to show how we can get workplace sponsorship. A workplace sponsor is traditionally someone in a position in a company that is able to guide and influence your progress through the maze and politics of advancement. A sponsor takes an employee they think has potential and guides them in a different manner than a mentor or supporter or coach would. Okay? The short version of, and this is from Johnson Lewis, the short version is a workplace sponsor is someone that is advocating for you behind closed doors. That is the best way I can put it. And we'll go into some examples for that. Okay? Sponsors, usually already at the executive grade, take an interest in furthering the advancement of the employees with the most potential. Already understood that. A sponsor's interest can come from desire to help others advance, but most of the time, there are other motivators that influence a decision to sponsor someone. So usually the sponsor is looking at two things. One, I want to help this individual grow. I want to help this individual advance within the organization. But also, I want my organization to be the best that it can be. So I have an interest, because I'm in management, I'm in upper management, I'm CEO, to help the individual. In return, it helps the organization itself, because I'm sponsoring this person to do this, this, and this. Okay? Now, I believe a really good sponsor, the first desire is to help the individual. It's always help the individual. And you can sponsor someone, because I've done this, you can sponsor someone and then that individual leaves right after that. And honestly, I don't have too much of a problem with that. Okay? Because we've grown that individual, and because we care about our fellow man and fellow person, we are here to help that individual. And the byproduct, again, is it assists the organization, because now I have an employee or I have a staff member that has greater skills. Okay? The key motivator for finding a protege is to further the interest and profitability of the company. This came from the for-profit world, but we use it in the nonprofit. It's also in the military. It's very common in the military. In fact, in the military, officers at a certain rank are obligated to identify individuals in ranks below them that have potential, and then to support them and to put them into positions that they can grow to be a greater leader in the military. Okay? I'm going to go through this one real quick, but there's some data on workplace sponsorship. I'm not even going to read this, but the key component of this is white male sponsors have a significant effect on the pay and advancements of the respondent. Those who have a white male sponsor, regardless of race or gender, achieve higher pay rates than those with a non-white male sponsor. White males earn less when they are sponsored by a female. That's sad, and what we're trying to do is to change that dynamic. And what it says, you're best off finding a white male sponsor to sponsor you than to find one from other backgrounds or genders. There have been some improvements, and this was from 2018, and I'm hoping the numbers have gone up. But it's still, there's a dominance of white male influences in advancement in the workplace. And you can look at your organization and take a look at that. Luckily, the nonprofit world's a little bit better, but you're the best sponsors have been. But I'm a big believer that anyone can sponsor someone, and that in time, this won't be dominated by white males being the best sponsors. Okay? How to find a sponsor. So we've identified what a sponsor is. A sponsor is an individual that is going to advocate for you and provide opportunities for you to grow and advance. That's what a workplace sponsor is going to do. So how we find this person? Have excellent performance. Number one, have excellent performance. I am not going to sponsor somebody who has poor performance. I might get them a performance coach, but I'm not going to sponsor them because I'm trying to get them to advance. I don't want to advance someone who doesn't have a skill set or does not have the work habits that are going to give performance at a higher level, because that individual is going to touch more people. Now they become a team leader. Now they become the director of development. Now they become the vice provost of advancement. As they work their way up, if they don't have that skill set or don't have those leadership qualities, why would I want to try to move them up? Because now they're touching not just themselves when they're working alone. Now they're touching a team of 4. Now they're touching a team of 20. Now they're touching a group of 100, that we have at the advancement office. So we want to always sponsor people with excellent performance. You want to get in front of potential sponsors. That doesn't mean, you run up and stand in front of them, but you want to get in front of them and let yourself be known. One of the best ways I always found to do this is when you have events, your organization has nonprofit events, and usually upper management is there. And just introduce yourself and let the individuals know that, this is what I'm doing. I'm in the annual giving, or I'm in data, management or data acquisition, whatever I may be in. That's what I'm in, and I just want to introduce myself. I'm part of the team that just got hired, XYZ. Okay? But get in front of potential sponsors, individuals in management and upper management, especially, who have the opportunity to sponsor you. Make known your wish to advance. Important. And that's something that sometimes we hold back on for different reasons. But say, hey, I really would love to advance within this organization. I always just love going to my direct supervisor and say, hey, I'd love to advance. What do I need to do? What do I need to do? What would you like for me? I'll give you excellent performance, but do I need to take any classes here? Do I need to study anything here? Do I need some accreditation? Do I need a CFRE? Do I need a CAP? You let me know what I need to do, because I'd love to, grow, and because I believe this is the field that I would like to stay in. Make known your willingness to learn. And what I mean by that, be curious. One of my favorite terms is being curious. Make known your willingness for continuing education. You're on this call. You're on this workshop, and that's awesome. You're learning. This was presented to a lot of people and a certain amount of people, and I can understand people have other things they want to do, but you're trying to learn more. And what a great opportunity. But make known that you have a willingness to learn to your supervisors and to management. Make known your willingness to volunteer. And what I mean, volunteer internally. If there's a committee that's being formed, raise your hand. Because they're looking for people that are eager to engage within the organization. And then you can say, hey, if there's any committees or any group or any task force that are being put together, please let me know. I'd be interested. And plus, it expands your network of people when you get on these committees and when you do the volunteer. But it also tells upper management and management that you're willing to give of your capacity of time. That's what volunteering is doing to further the mission of that organization. And then asked to help potential sponsors on projects. That's like the volunteering. But if there's any type of special project you hear coming up, man, raise your hand. Approach those individuals. Talk to your supervisor. Say, hey, I'd love to be. I heard there's a new task force, a new committee coming about. I'd love to be hear more about it. Or is there an opportunity that I could be on that? Okay? That's how you find one. Because, and again, most of the time you don't even know you're being sponsored. The individual is indicated. We get together at the upper management level. I've been in upper management for a minute. And we identify individuals that we think have potential. And then what we do is we say, hey, where can we send this person? What can we put this person on? What can we do to support this person to do more? And not to do more, to be more effective and to grow within this organization. And we literally talk about those individuals. And a workplace sponsor, then only thing you hear is, hey, there's this class they want you to take. Or, hey, there's a conference that they want you to attend to. We're paying for it. And we sponsor. We're the ones that raise our hand. Hey, we have 3 spots open for AFP Icon, international conference up in Toronto next year. Does anybody have anybody that will pay? The organization will pay. Who are the people? And then people are there to advocate for people on their teams or people they believe that have this potential. And I was going to talk a little bit about my experience, but anyway, I've had that experience. I have been workplace sponsored. I didn't even know. All I heard is my boss came to me one day and said, hey, there's a group called Leadership Anchorage, and I would like for you to go to that. Can you fit that in your schedule? And this was a 6-month-long, pretty much weekly get-together. It would start off weekly, then it goes to monthly. But it was incredible. And I didn't know until later on that that was almost $3,000 that he invested in me. My CEO invested in me because he saw potential in me. And, I've been forever thankful. And in return, I have sponsored 2 people to Leadership Anchorage out of my pocket because I've been so blessed that someone had the opportunity to do that for me. And I have been blessed in my business, okay? So my CEO is my sponsor. I also had, my CEO said, hey, I will pay for your CFRE if you want to get it. If you want to take the test, back in those days, it was 5 years. You want to take the test? I'll pay for the training. There's the class, the course, and I also pay for you to take the test. And I did it and got my CFRE. So anyway, I've done that, and that's what I was talking about. I've done things also where I've been able to sponsor people, and I've been sponsored. Those are the 2 right off the top of my head that I've been sponsored. But there's some other things that I've done to support and sponsor people for membership in AFP, and also to go to the Leadership Academy. I had paid for them to go to AFP Lead out of my pocket. But again, that's just me because I have seen something in these individuals, and I believe that it would be good for them. And I don't want ever funding to be a problem. Okay. Let's talk about mentoring, which is probably one of my favorite subjects. This is our last group. This is mentoring. According to a recent study, 75% of professional men and women want to have a mentor. Only 37%, only half the people that want to have a mentor have a mentor. What's more, most of the people currently acting as mentors aren't having as dramatic an impact as they could because they're too narrowly focused on career advancement. That's from Rick Woolworth. I agree 100%. As a mentor, I can help you technical. I tell them about all the guys I work with. And I can talk a little bit about, I only work with men. It's my choice. And this is a difficulty at times. Sometimes it's difficult for women to find mentors, especially within their fields. because a lot of the advanced people or people in positions of leadership are men. It's unfortunate. I'm not even talking about it. Nonprofit, we're really, really fortunate. But it's a difficulty. And I've had women approach me to mentor them. And I said, I don't mentor women. And there's very specific reasons I don't. And I hope you understand that. But I have a couple names of women who told me that they will mentor other women, and especially in the area of development. So let me give you some names, and I will do that. So the key thing that I want to talk about this is my thing is when we mentor, it's not just about career advancement. It's more whole person support. Remember I said this, mentoring is self-directed. So we're going to talk about now, I'll talk about the mentoring. Mentoring is self-directed, mutually beneficial, long-term relationship. And that's important, long-term. Remember, I have guys 10, 11, 12 years I've been working with. Relationship between two individuals for long-term career movement where the mentor does most of the talking and offers advice. So usually what I will do, so this is what I do, and I'll put this up front. My job as a mentor is to engender dreams. That's it, engender dreams, to make your dreams a truth. I've been doing this long enough, worked with over 40 men, and one of the most difficult things of men of color that I've worked with is many times people have taken away, or they've internally taken away the ability to dream. And so I'll sit down at the first meeting and say, what's your dream? What's your dream? And I say, take your time. I'm going to drink my coffee, eat my meal, or I'm on a Zoom call, but I give them time because no one's given them permission to dream. A lot of people don't dream. It'll never happen. That'll never happen for you. And I've been fortunate enough, I've had grown men with tears in their eyes because their dreams came true. Took 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, grown men, because they never thought they could do that. But my thing is to support you, engender the dreams by my mentorship, okay? So let's go into a little more. My task is to engender dreams, to support you in various ways to make your dreams and aspirations a reality, better known as a truth. That's what I do as a mentor, okay? When I mentor, and how do you mentor? You make the relationship explicit, and formal. We talked about that, implicit versus implicit. This is not implied. You know what I'm going to bring to the table. Number one, I will be there, and I will give you technical information, and I will also give you emotional support as you work through your journey to make your dream a truth, okay? We establish boundaries. So when I work with gentlemen, when I work with people, I always 2 books. I start everybody off with The Speed of Trust by Covey and The 7 Pillars of Self-Esteem by Nathaniel Branden. Those are the first 2 books. They have to read, every man I've worked with. Now, then we can go into more things specific to your sector, to your, whatever you want to grow, what area. We can go into, I have books on relationship. I have books on a lot of different things. But those are what I was talking. And one of the things I want to really define is trust. And I tell them, it'll take time. It may take time for us to build trust, but we will build trust. And I will do everything in my power to build that trust. I will never say anything that is spoken between us to another person, including my wife. Nobody. I don't talk to anybody about what I talk to individuals and when I'm mentoring. That's number one. Number two, I will show up when I tell you I'm going to show up. And number three, I will give you space to, if you make mistakes or you don't show up for a meeting, I don't say, hey, I'm done with you. Never have, never will. But I'll allow space for you to grow, because I know that sometimes some of the habits that you want to create to be successful in life, you may not have those habits right now. Okay? So we establish roles. I always tell them, I'm the mentor, you're the mentee. Okay? And we establish that role. It's nothing negative. I don't talk down. remember I said, I'm predominantly Socratic, and that I will ask you questions and then I'll sit back and allow you to think and then articulate your answer. And what I'm always saying is all I need for you is to share your truth. That's what I want to hear. Your truth. I'm really big on truth. Responsibilities, really, pretty much the only rule that I have is not even a rule. This is something I want you to be accountable to. We set up meetings. I meet with all my guys. I have approximately 16 or 18 of them. I have to look at my list. I have to have a spreadsheet, but I have a list 2 months, like clockwork, third Friday and third Thursday of each month. So I have one like July 20th. I just know that date because I have 12 back to back. I meet with them for 1 hour. And I say, anytime in between, if something comes up, contact me. I'm your mentor. Contact me. Because remember, I'm here to also support you when you have a bad day or something in pursuit of a goal or aspiration, you have a little setback. And so I'm always accountable to that. And that's all I ask them to do. If you can't make the meeting, please let me know because I can fill it with something else. But that's pretty much the only. And then the other thing is when you're as comfortable as you can, just share with me your truth. That's all I want you to be accountable to. You know, if you haven't read the book or haven't read a couple of chapters, that doesn't matter to me. We will get through the book because, again, always make sure this is long term. Remember, coaching is always a defined timeline. I've never known anybody to be coached for 12 years. I haven't. But usually it's 3 months, 6 months, a year. So that's one of the more important things. So when we're mentoring, how are we mentoring? We establish communication. It's going to be Zoom. Time, every 2 months, third Friday. Place, Zoom. We talk and the frequency. We said every 2 months. I meet them where, and this is real important. Meet them where the mentee is. One of the things I learned after working with so many men is that people are in different paths on their journey. Some guys are like real quick. They read 2 of the books within 2 months. Read the book. I just meet you where you're at, wherever you're at, emotionally, intellectually, spiritually, and we'll talk spiritual. If you want to go there, we'll talk about spirituality. If you don't want to go there, remember we set our boundaries. We won't talk about it. If we want to talk about your marriage, we'll talk about it. If you don't, we won't talk about it. Remember, I'm here to engender your dream. And if you're having difficulties within the household, then let's talk about that, okay? And give you a chance to have a safe place to share this, okay? As much as possible, I like to do face-to-face. But once I started mentoring in advancement, because originally I just mentored young Black men in Anchorage, Alaska. And then I put out a call one day I was doing a webinar, and I said, anybody want to be mentored? Contact me. And I had like 20, 25 people contact me. I mean, that's how badly people want to be mentored. And so, again, this is one of the things I do ask my mentors is to give it back. I have 4 generations, and I'm just talking about this is my world, but I have 4 generations of Black men mentoring Black men. I have my mentor, there's me, there's the 16, 18 guys I'm working with, and the guys I've worked with, and then they're mentoring. Many of them are mentoring younger men, in their 20s and teens. So how do you mentor? Talk to them about their dream, give them permission to dream, share experiences and stories. There's a lot of power in stories. Share knowledge. So I do a lot of this. Remember I told you there's the technical. So a lot of the guys I'm working with are in the field of development and advancement. And so I teach a lot of classes in fundraising and development, okay? I've been exposed to a lot, I've done quite well. And if I don't have the answer, I pretty much know where to find the answer or who to talk to find the answer. So many times I'll share books, articles, podcasts, or introduce you to people. one of the things I always do with my mentors is when we go to international conference, AFP Icon, I introduce them to Mike Geiger, to the president of AFP, and now introduce them to other real sharp individuals that I have met through my journey for the last 13, 14 years in the fundraising field. This is what it is, what I just said. Introduce you to people who may assist you in achieving. I may not have all the answers, or I may not have all the contacts. So I will introduce you to people, whether it's through Zoom or through in person, but I will give you contact. I'm a real big believer in your network. Sometimes I use that, I think that word is overused, but your network, those individuals that you have a connection to and communicate and build a relationship with. And then this is probably the key thing I do is I ask questions, I listen, and I give feedback. I do that. I mean, we have an hour. And another thing I do, every single meeting I have as a mentor, the first thing I say to the mentor when we get on the call is, tell me about a win. I always start off with a win. And that's something, a positive accomplishment that has happened in the last 2 months. My guys are so used to it now, they like can't wait. Hey, Ken, I got 2 of them. I'm like, oh, come on with it, you know. But they're so excited to share those wins. But it gets us off to a positive. And we can talk about some of the setbacks or bumps in the roads at a later point, but let's start off with a win. And it gets them inspired, okay? And then I have empathy. I will always have empathy with the individuals I work with. They become some of my, well, they become friends. I'm still the mentor, but they're my friends. And when I see them at conferences or see them on the Zoom, and I've met many of them because I've done like 3 different conferences in the last couple months, and I've met the majority of the ones that I just met online originally from, mentoring guys in development, men in development. Okay, so we talked about we'll support them emotionally. We mentor the whole person, again, within boundaries and permissions. Help identify strengths. I'm a big one in identifying strengths and then emphasizing the strengths of the individual. So in time, I'll be able to hear what the strengths are. And then I'll reflect back, you're really good in that. You might want to look at potentially expanding, because that's a strength of yours. Okay? And let's run with the strength. And then let's keep our weaknesses within reason, but let's run with our strengths. And then I will share truth. That's one thing they know from me. I will share truth. And if I hear something that's of a concern of mine, I will let you know, because I care about you as a person. And I want the best for you as a person. Okay? All right, celebrate success, growth, and overcoming. I always encourage mentoring of others. I've been mentoring with you for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. Let's reach down and let's mentor. Okay? Probably one of the best ways to be mentored is to be a mentee. Because remember, I'm still a mentee. I still meet with my mentor. 2 of some of the most successful men in our field and out of our field. Okay? I'm not going to mention names because that's not my place to do that. But I still meet with those guys regularly. Be consistent, long-term, and I love to say this word, loving. Loving. And I work just with men, and I am loving. And they know that. I care about them. Do things for them. I've supported them. I've done workplace sponsorship for them as mentees. But the key thing is I'm intrinsically interested in your well-being and your growth. Okay? How to find a mentor. The most important thing I can say on this, I was going to tell a story how I did, but our timing is getting a little short here. Find the most successful people in your area, in and outside your field. I usually would do in person, invite to lunch, but just give them a call. They're not hard to find. People who are very successful are not hard to find. And just mention to them, hey, I'm looking for a mentor. Would you be interested? Are you open to mentoring? And a lot of times if they can't because of time capacity is usually the reason, they will recommend a couple people. Like, for example, I can't take on any more people. I'm tapped out. But I have a group that I work with, Men of Color in Development, and we have in just in the last 2 years, we have set up 43 men of color with with mentors. So they're out there, and you just got to ask. Make the ask. We're used to doing that. I'm looking for a mentor. Would you be open to mentoring me? If they're not available, ask them if there's someone else they can recommend. And of course, what we do always is we thank them for their time. Okay? So let's wrap up. Look for and invest in coaching, whether your organization will pay for it or you pay for it, especially in the area of predominantly, I would think performance coaching is the one, or leadership coaching. I love both of those. Or if you're an executive director, CEO, look at that leadership, also coaching and the business coaching. Look for a workplace sponsor. We talked about that. How do we identify one? And look for that. Look for a mentor. Of all these, my favorite is always the mentoring because it's so encompassing of everything. And then mentor someone, give it back. Give it back. Many of you are not in a position to coach, probably at this point, but at some time, hopefully you will be able to be a coach and get paid for it. That's fine. Some of you are not in a position to be a workplace sponsor, but if you are in a position to be a workplace sponsor, start advocating for people in the boardroom, advocating when we have our team leader meetings, when we have our management meetings, start advocating for people and supporting people in their growth and advancement. And the last thing, and hopefully we'll be able to give you the slide deck or at least give you this contact information. It is up on the screen here, but anyone can call me. That's my cell phone number anytime. If I'm answering phone calls, I'll answer. If not, I won't answer, but I will get back with you, usually within 24 hours. And that's my email. And feel free to contact me anytime. And again, thank you for your investment in yourself. And thank you for what you do for our sector. And that's it. Thanks, Jay.
Wow. Ken, I'm so grateful for all of this. I love this, especially that you leaning into those definitions and explaining what they really mean, because both those things are so important. I'm a big fan of definitions too, especially because there seemed to be some connective tissue between all these things, but you really helped make the distinction so clear to me, and I'm sure to everybody in the room. I have a couple of questions, if you don't mind, as we kind of get toward the end. And one is kind of a simple one, which is it ever too early or too late to either seek a mentor, coach, or sponsor, or to become one?
No, never. Mentoring is a relationship. It's an explicit relationship between two individuals where you mentor, support that individual. I was 50, approximately, but now I was about 47 when I found my last mentor. I had mentors back in the 80s. Then I went on the streets, that passed. And then when I got out and moved up to Anchorage, I ran into a gentleman in the gym who I had not seen in 20, 30 years. He was the president of the Municipal Light and Power. He was the head person, a couple thousand employees, and African-American man. And I asked him, would he be my mentor? He said, sure, why not? And he's still my mentor. Okay, so there's no problem about age on either side. And that's another thing, to remain humble. I'm 61. I'm still being mentored. Okay, that's something that's important for me to know, because it takes away my ego. And Hubert, I'm being mentored, and I listen to my mentors. Believe me, I listen to them. So yeah, and there's nothing that's too early. The only question I have is I don't mentor children, and I don't mentor teenagers unless I have permission of the parents, and I have done young people of color. But the parents came to me and asked me if I would, and some of them are doing great. It brings a smile to my face because I met them when they were 16. Yeah. Now they're 26, and they're doing great. And that's not because of me, because of what they're doing. But they stayed with me.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, one of the things is that you've been giving us a language for discussing these things. And presumably when you ran into that guy at the gym, however many years ago.
Yeah.
One of the things that's amazing to me is that you found the words to ask for the thing that you needed, as well as finding a person who was willing to give it. So is part of this also just a way of kind of being good, as you were talking about, Socratic listeners? So it's not so much that we need to say, I need a mentor, as having a discussion with someone whose advice we admire, whose experience we admire, who we trust, and then having that discussion and finding the right path, whether it's coaching or sponsorship or mentoring?
It could be. I got out of college in 1984.
Mhm.
And I read somewhere that you should get a mentor. I read it somewhere. And they
So
said, find the most
desperate.
successful people
Yeah.
in your community. So I called up the ex-governor of Alaska, Wally Hickel. Never forget it. Walter Hickel, Paula Easley, and another gentleman who was like president of AT&T. And Paula Easley was with this Resource Development Council. So I love telling the stories. It's a story, and whoever wants to stay on can hear it. But anyway, so I call him up, I get his secretary, and I said, can I talk to Walter Hickel? And she's like, well, who is it? I said, my name is Ken Miller, and I'd like to speak with him. And so she put me on with him. I said, hi, I'm looking for a potential mentor. Can we meet? And he's like, huh? He's like, sure. And he said, meet me at the top of the world, because he owns the largest hotel in Anchorage, the Captain Cook. The top of the world, what's called top of the world? Top of the world is what one of the most expensive restaurants in Anchorage. And I'm like, how am I going to afford this? So I met him for lunch, and I probably ate a piece of lettuce because I didn't want to, and I'm buying his, I'm thinking. And then when we got done, it was such a wonderful meeting, because people who have reached the top are usually some of the most giving people you will ever meet. In my field, I'm pretty much at the top of my field, what I do. Okay? I'm on the board, I make really good money, okay? And I own a company. I've done it. But I so want to give it back. I want others to get this, because a lot of times they don't have this one in their 20s or 30s or 40s. Okay? So anyway, in the end, so when we got done, and I'm like looking at this bill, which might be, let's say $60, $70, which is a lot of money in 1985. We went to the waitress, and he goes, hey, just put it on the account. And we got up and left, because he owns the place. So I didn't have to pay for it. But anyway, that's how I ended up getting them early. So the key thing is to make the ask, and then also, like you, and a good point you brought up, is to define, what are you looking for? Because some of you on this call are just looking for technical assistance in a specific area, performance coaching. Some of you would like to advance within your organization. You work for a larger organization. You want to advance within that organization. It would behoove you to get a workplace sponsor. Definitely. Okay. And then others are looking for that all around, that mentorship. And remember, another word for mentorship is really support. It's to support me in my journey. Mm-hmm. Remember, both workplace sponsorship and coaching are time delimited. They're short amount of time. Mentoring, good mentoring, is open-ended. My guys know, as long as I'm quote unquote breathing, when I retire, I'll have more time to mentor you. You know what I mean? So anyway, that's some of the differences.
You do and have done all of these things. You obviously believe in each of these pathways. You speak with particular passion about mentorship. I mean, that's clear. It comes through, and you devote a lot of your time to it. You've talked about the benefits to the mentee. You've also talked a little bit about the benefits to the mentor. In the end, one of the things you said really struck me, which is that 75% of the people in that one survey want one, 37% can get one. But also there was another reference to that the experience is not necessarily as effective as they would be. You've just described very effective mentor relationships. What is it ultimately that makes this work as well as it's worked for you and those you mentor?
So one of the biggest difficulties is that mentors aren't trained to mentor. Yeah, I teach classes on mentorship. I teach classes on self-esteem. I teach classes.
Mhm.
To teach a class, you have to do research. That's why I always have attribution, and you also have to keep up and then it also helps to have experience. I mean, I'm not the same mentor that I was 13 years ago, in no way, shape, or form. Okay, I've learned hundreds of meetings with mentees. So so that's why many times it's not as effective for two reasons. Number one, the mentor doesn't really know what he or she is doing as a mentor. They haven't been trained as a mentor or even taken the time to do some research on how to be a mentor. You can just go online and look up mentoring 101 or just how to be a mentor. And then the other thing, this is an important one. That's why I so emphasize it. There's no explicit contract. It's never been, you haven't described the framework of the relationship explicitly. Because if you don't, the mentee goes in with just an assumption or implied that this person's going to do this, this, and this. I define what I'm going to do for you, okay? And what I have to offer. But what I always tell them, some of this will come in time as you learn to trust me more, because trust is really all trust is a belief in a perceived future action. That's what trust is. Okay. And so when I say I'm going to be there, I'm going to be there at 5 o'clock for our mentor meeting, I will be there. If not, I will let you know. Or if I tell you that anything you share with me will not be shared outside of this conversation, no one has ever heard that I've said something in a mentor relationship that has gotten out to the greater public. Never, because it hasn't happened. Okay, I don't do that. Okay, so anyway, but I make sure that they understand those, because we have an explicit contract. So most mentors don't know how to create. And then it makes frustration on both sides, both the mentor and the mentee. I'll put one more aside. As a mentor, I'm not there to be your friend, but I always become your friend. You understand the difference? I'm not there to be your friend, because the other thing is, and I have done this, not a lot, but I've had to be real frank in my truth to individuals. Because it's not that I don't want you not to like me, but the key thing is, I want you to hear the truth. This is what I'm hearing. These are the actions that you're engaging in, and I have a concern. Now, what you do with it, but it's not a value judgment on you as a person. It may be an opinion on the action, because my belief, if you continue down that road, there may be repercussions to those. But I'll be honest enough to let you know that, because this is what I'm hearing from you. Okay.
Ken, I'm grateful for all of this. Thank you so much for sharing with the group here today, but also for everything that you do in the field. We really all owe you a debt, including for kind of doing this to prepare us to do what we need to do to take on this responsibility like you've done as a model of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I know you shared how people can reach you. Where can people see you next? I understand you're working on a book, but you've got other things happening. So where can people see you next? Where can they be part of the Ken Miller fan club?
You can. I will be. What's my next speaking engagement? So I have some speaking engagements. I have some podcasts that are coming up. Okay. I was supposed to speak in New York, because I don't know if you know, Jay, but there's a part that I speak about technical. Of course, I teach classes. I'll be teaching at AFP Lead. in Philadelphia in October. And then there'll be multiple. I'd have to look at my calendar here or my schedule. But I have like 4 or 5 more teachings that I'm doing. But if Jay, anytime, I mean, invite me back. Again, it costs nothing. I just want to. This is what got me in trouble. I gotta tell a quick story, and I'll be done. So I teach a class on like the basics of fundraising 101, or introduction to fundraising. It is a 5-hour workshop. And I teach how-tos. I'm not theory. This is not a theory guy. I am a tactical person. Okay. I'm about delivery of the message. And anyway, I teach that 5 hours. I would do it in Anchorage, Alaska for free. For free. Sometimes I had over 300 people show up because they're getting 5 hours of good training for free. So COVID comes and everything gets shut down in person. So I go to do it online. And I put it out to a couple sectors and groups, mostly AABO and a few others. And I get this call from a fellow consultant. And like, Ken, you can't do that. And I'm like, what? I can't do. She said, you can't teach this for free because we charge. And it sort of, it skews us. And you're giving it away. Whereas we're trying to eat and we're trying to, support our family. And I'm like, oh, wow, I never thought of that. And so, I end up, I think I have $20, something like that. Because I just want to share the info. I do fine in my company. I don't need the money from that. So anytime I can give back, and if you have any other ones, Jay, that you would like for me to do, I would love to come on. And I would love to see each and every one. And this is another thing I put out, especially when I'm doing it online. If anyone sees me at a conference, I go to a lot of conferences. If anyone sees me at a conference, come up to me. I am like the most approachable person. And I have had people come up, hey, I saw you on this. And literally, most of the time, I will take time just to sit and talk with you, just one-on-one. That's who I am. And because again, I believe in you and I love for what you're doing to grow as an individual in our sector and what you do for the nonprofit world.
Well, I can vouch for all of that because, in fact, the first time we actually met in person was at AFP Icon. So that's the reason that we're lucky enough to have you here today. And again, our thanks to DonorSearch for also providing this platform. So these sessions are free, and then we get to have great insights from people like you, Ken. Thank you so much for everything today. I encourage everybody to make sure you jot down that information. We'll make sure to put it in the notes as well. The show notes on YouTube when this recording hits there, so you can reach out to him and learn more about his work and see where he comes up next, which is plenty of places, or maybe see one of his other webinars, which I'm sure will come up soon. And also, while you're at the website, do take a look at the Masterminds series schedule. You can look at both past recordings as well as what's coming up. There's a lot. We have about 110 to 120 sessions this year, so I hope you'll be a part of some of that. And if you have ideas for things that we should cover, hopefully as great as this one, please just write me a note. You can do that, jay@donorsearch.net. You can reach me anytime there. So until next time, take care, and we'll see you soon. Thanks again, Ken.